Hi, happy 2026. I hope this is going to be a great year in your painting practice. Um, this year, I thought I'd start off with sharing here a video on making collage paintings from collage papers that we can make ourselves. So this is actually a unit from my larger course, Serious Fun, which is a 5-week course that involves we touch on all kinds of different aspects of painting, mark making, abstracting botanicals, still life. So I thought this is just a good warm up to jump into the new year if you need that. I'm actually going to be teaching an abstracting landscape course, 5-week course in April, instead of my 5-week Serious Fun course. So if you are interested in working through abstracting landscape, playing through abstracting landscape with me, you can follow this space, or better yet, join my mailing list. Just go to my website, which is linked below, and you'll have a chance to just sign up for my mailing list. And then I can keep in touch with you and let you know more details on abstracting landscape. Okay, so let's start making some collages. I made a lot more papers in the analogous palette range. Some are textural, some are gestural, some are pattern. This one was off the jelly plate, so it's got a lot of texture on it. And this one too. This is with printing with a wallpaper. There's a low contrast patterning. Just some more jelly plate prints. Then some solid pieces. Here's a fragment from some I made yesterday. You can also integrate papers that you've found around or sourced from. I think these are for wrapping sandwiches in delis. You just have to be careful that the inks are fast. If you're going to put them into something you want to frame or sell, then you need to make sure that the colors are light fast. I'm not sure these are. Here's another low contrast print, some gestural work, etc. So we'll work in a small collage first. Here's the transfers. Here, this is printing from meatpacking foam stencil that I made myself, and the gestural marks. So what I'm going to do first actually is cut these into some more manageable sizes and create a pile that I can draw from. Alright, so this is my pile of stuff, and I've cut them into smaller pieces just so they'll be more manageable. Such a variety of choices. I could probably make a dozen collages with this, and it's hard to know where to start, but I just encourage you to just jump in and make lots of collages. I'm just going to do a couple for you here today, but you know, you can collect a bunch that you think are going to go together, and then start and kind of rearrange them and see how they might work on the page. What I like to do is just start with one piece that I really like, and then rummage around until I find something that I think works with it. And sometimes I'll hesitate before I glue it down, and move it around a little bit. But my first piece I like to just jump in. So what I've got here is I've got some Mod Podge, which is probably a little bit better for gluing down the heavier papers, and some matte medium for the lighter papers. A little bit of water and a brush for the glue. And let's start. I like these low contrast prints here. I also like I like a lot these foam meat tray prints. So I think I'm going to start with one of these. And this is a piece of card taped off in the middle. So I've got two kind of smaller ones to work with here. Now I can think about edges, because one of the things that we want to build into these is contrast. And so there's a sharp edge. Maybe I'll leave that edge or this edge a little bit more a ragged edge. So let's do that. I'm going to just glue that down. So that's fairly light paper, so I think I can just use matte medium. And really glue it down well on the underside and on top as well. Okay, we've embarked. Let's see what feels like a good choice next. That's a bit much against that. Here's a nice textured one. Grab some black and white. Two. That one's a little subtler. You can see how this one, the tone kind of works better with that. This one is really, really bright. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but just doesn't feel. So a lot of this is kind of intuitive, right? But before I put on another pattern, I think I'll put on something a little more subtle. So this is the phthalo green and French ultramarine, I think. And then I just scored into it when it was wet. But I really like this, the saturated and the darker value. So now I could cut that more in a shape, or I could maybe repeat some of these, this idea of dashes. Why don't I cut a few thin ones? I could also tear. So what would happen if I have one torn edge? How about that? One torn edge. Maybe the torn edge is nice, sort of contrasting there. Pull it over here. Try some of the Mod Podge here because this is heavier paper. There we go. So those are kind of two statement pieces. Okay, I wonder if I can use a little bit more of this somewhere. I think I'll put it over here as a possibility. We talked about this one too. Maybe I'll make a kind of curved line on this piece, because now I've introduced a curve here. What about something like that? Or, so a lot of this process for me is just kind of experimenting and seeing how these things might do juxtaposed. Bring that down like that. And you don't have to use up all of your pieces in one piece, in one collage. Probably better to leave a little bit of simplicity in these. I've got down to my middle is right about here. I'll put a piece of tape down there. Or maybe expand it a little bit bigger. Give it a bit more breathing room. Okay, So I'm thinking one of these transparent ones that we can lay on top. What would that do? So this is a one of my semi-transparent papers. Not sure what it is exactly. Maybe a examining paper, table paper. So this is where I spend some time kind of fooling around with things and see if I can join elements that are kind of separate. I like the way this brings the eye up in this curve because we've got a lot of hard edges. So I like that. So with these lighter papers, I think the medium works better. And I use matte medium because I find gloss medium a bit sticky. So I'm going to just overlap that, being careful to work from the center out. And these transparent papers can really unify other pieces because they can lie on top of them. So it's got a kind of nautical feel, this one. Okay, I've been mulling some things over. So some of these are not attached. I've just been moving them around. This piece, this matches that one. These two come from the same piece. And this is more of that. So let's start gluing. Now I haven't gessoed or put medium on the back of this paper I'm working on, but it is taped down. However, because it's not that heavy a paper, it's about heavier than 100 pounds. It's a card. It's going to ripple when it's wet, but when it dries, it will flatten out. I'm going to cut some of that off. I kind of liked the sense that this is kind of a seascape, so I thought this boat shape might work. Let some of that show or not? Yeah, put that on the top. So we'll dry that and see whether it needs any interaction. So sometimes, you get the pieces down. Look, this piece also needs to be glued down. I found this was just a little abrupt, the connection between those two, even though I really like that curved piece. This kind of boaty shape. Maybe we could, I think what I liked was just to interfere with that a little and create continuity with this piece. So we still have the curved shapes. I will dry this and then we'll contemplate it and see if we need to add any mark making or painting now. Okay, so sometimes when we get pieces down, they just need to be connected with each other. And sometimes mark making can really help with that. So I'm going to find something that I might be able to make some line that moves through here. All right, I have a white gel pen. And I just kind of feel like maybe some of these lines could be connected a little bit. Maybe circle a few of these. Kind of just kind of connect up pieces. How about a oil pastel? Always like working with oil pastel. Just so it feels sometimes like you want to see the artist's hand on the paper, you know, on the piece. That the materials can do a lot of things, and then you just kind of want to see. You want to see the artist going back in and working again into the piece. Here's my Posca pen. But generally what I'm doing now is just kind of connecting these pieces together, and but I don't want a whole lot of, I don't want to add a whole lot more activity. So it's sort of always a tension between what do you want, how do you want to, what you want to add to the collage, but you don't, if you don't want it to get a lot more busy. Sometimes it's a tension, so you just have to kind of experiment and see what happens. Now, because I haven't gessoed this card, this is bare paper here. So what I often like to do with bare paper is just to actually get a little paint down. So I've got some titanium white, and I'm just going to get a brush and get a little bit of paint on some of these kind of open areas. Get the really bright white. And at this point, you know, when you add paint, you can always go in and simplify and paint things out too. With this piece, I don't feel like it needs much simplifying, but you can change edges, that kind of thing. I'm going to dry that, and let's take a look at it under a mat. So a couple more additions as I've contemplated here. I thought this piece that I cut out from when I made this piece kind of creates a nice curve here. So I'm going to just put that on the edge. Now, I think that that's working really well. I trim these off eventually when they're dry, but if we look at it under a mat, it can kind of clarify what we've got happening here. And we can lift this, or we can drop it. And this is really, really active, so I think I would drop it down. That puts an element right in the middle, but we could pull that over a bit. I think that's a good composition right there. So let's look at contrast, because we talked about, you know, a lot of visual tension comes from contrast. So we've got really, really textured areas and then some really flat areas. We have areas of high contrast and areas of not very high contrast. We've got edges which are ragged and edges which are really sharp, and some lines of different weights, like here, and then the meandering lines here, and even this could be considered a linear element. And then there's linear elements carved into the wet paint here, just still subtle linear elements. So that's collage number one, and I'm just going to work away on another one with a warm palette this time, and just see what happens with another set of collage papers that I have. So this collage, I'm going to work with maybe a red-green palette and black and white. But again, I'll just put down some pieces and see where it goes. I have these pieces of Rosie's paintings still, which I really love as starter points. So maybe I'll use one of those. And I'm going to work bigger, because the other way that we can work is to just, work in a bigger space and then crop afterwards. So I'll start with this one. And now I'm just going to work away and not make any comments. And then we can talk about it later. Okay, so this is finished for now. I've done quite a few things. I've calmed this down with the zinc white and thinned out titanium white. I have re-added some chunks of dark, some more kind of ischemic writing here to kind of resonate with this, but I've also pushed that back also with a veil of white. So let's have a look and see what kind of compositions we could find. Probably it's still a bit busy. I mean, I really had to force myself to paint that out, but this is what we have to do. We have to simplify some areas, make them quiet. And when we have so many collage papers, it's really hard to do because they're all so beautiful and we want to use them all. And it's hard to remember to leave the simple spaces or paint other things out so that you create quiet areas. So if we talk about contrasts and differences, we have all the differences is in the kind of line. We have really saturated colors like the red here and here, as well as the desaturated form of red. We have some opaque areas like here, and you know the reds are kind of opaque. This is a little bit opaque too. It's got some texture in it, but we also have some very transparent places where we can see things through other things, like this veil of white. You can see the orange through it, and all this, of course, you can kind of see through it. So we have a combination of transparency and opacity. We could also take a look at this with a smaller crop, just to see if there's other compositions that work well. This is quite a heavy area. So what would it look like if we kind of chop that back a little bit? That's one possibility. This is pretty strong, but it's kind of balanced by this and by all the bright color down here. That's nice in a way because there is a lot of weight down here, but there's quite a lot of weight up here too. So I think it could work in a crop like that too. So I have interacted, of course, with the collage papers in lots of different ways, doing some more marking. This was a collage paper, but I brought that marking through here, and you know, fine white marks with my gel pen that sort of thread through here, and you know, painting back into this collage paper here to push it back a little bit. So that's where I'm going to leave this one, and I hope you have a lot of fun with your collages.